For the past month now, I've busied myself with a comparison of nothing but food. Food, food, and more food. But not just the food, no, but also the production of the food. And then not even just the production of the food, but the system used to produce the food. When people think about food production systems, one of the first things they think is farms. Okay, yeah, but what about farms? Also, what about the changes in the past 1,000 years in the way we produce our food? There have been some definite changes. I compared the ancient Maya with the modern French, and there are some definite differences. No, not just because of the different areas they exist and existed in the world, but because of the time. Let's take a look. Here, we have a depiction of the Maya just hanging out. Even from this one picture, you can see that they lived differently than us. They probably lived under lots of different circumstances, and definitely yet the absence of modern technology. The Mayan diet basically consisted of corn, beans, squash, limes, chilies, and turkey meat, along with the sacred cacao bean. The Mayans used the techniques of terracing and tablones. Terracing was where they had levels of crops, and they shaped them into a sort of waffle pattern. An irrigating system involving a canal streaming into the fields down hills deposited water in the waffle pits. In the raised waffle areas, they planted maize and beans. Tablones were basically planting beds separated by deep irrigation trenches, allowing the plants to be watered without much work. Now, why did they need to do things this way? Before a large population rise, the Maya grew a lot of food on family farms. The population started growing, and they began using these much more efficient methods of growing food. How did they learn this system, though? There's a quick answer to that, actually. They had neighbors who were talented in farming who taught them basically everything they knew. The neighbors included the Karakol and the Olmec, just to name a few. The impacts of this system were that the food production worked out swimmingly for a while, at least. Then they began to lose control. As their culture expanded, so did their population, and they needed more food. In fact, they needed more food than they could even produce. They slowly but surely died out. The ancient Maya, anyway. Of course, this is one of the many how the Maya died theories that are all equally valid, but it's extremely relevant to this topic, so I choose to use this one. Oh, the French. The French are known for their exquisite taste in fresh food, cheeses, romance, and wine. Mostly the wine, but remember, to drink well, you must eat well. Therefore, they must have a food production system. What drove the French into this production system is, along with their population, their fame. They are famed for wine and lavender, along with their farms containing cattle for their large cheese assortment, but trading for a lot of staple foods isn't enough to hold up their reputation. With all of this tourism and attention focused on those areas, they need to keep up production with all of their crops. Wine. Red, white, sometimes pink, and made of grapes. It's believed that the Celts first cultivated the grapevine, and then it was taken over to France. It turns out that they grew extremely well there, and soon you had vineyards. Wine was made, and it was known far and wide. France's fame was known in medieval times, and they traded with outside sources in order to grow food to support their growing wine-loving population. This is how they developed the system. They didn't really have any choice but to implement it. On locals and settlers alike, the abundance of healthy, fresh, and locally grown food that was eaten in moderation led to an increasing population. But the population only increases yearly slightly. Many people used to go to France, but it's tough for them to move there thanks to hard immigration policies. France is the 16th most populated place in the world, but it doesn't have any serious population issues. Okay, so now look and see, is this sustainable? Let's look at environmental, economical, and social aspects. Environmental. The French kept a lot of natural wildlife as well as contributing to its health, so it's environmentally sustainable. The French are known for working with their environment, and not just against it to feed the masses. They want to keep as much of nature into their famous products as they can. Economical. France is in debt, but not so much that it affects its food production. They also trade and make a ton of money off of the food and drink produced, therefore economically sustainable. Social. I'd say that millions of tourists can't be wrong, really, and everyone is happy eating how they're eating and being paid, and excluding the people who don't want to work, this system is totally sustainable. Now, in addition to these food production systems, I've also taken part in a food production system of my own. I was helped with it by my grandmother, and what it is a garden. It's a small garden that contains green onions, lettuce, broccoli, cabbage, and kale. I interacted with this production system for over 3 hours and will continue working on it for a long time. This is an interview with my grandmother, who helped with the garden and gave me a lot of useful tips on it. She's going to tell you how her gardening works and the needs, values, and perspectives and impacts of the system on her life.
I'm involved in small container gardening, and because I can't rotate crops, I have to continue to use fish emulsion and steer manure and all my scraps in a composter to keep my garden viable. I grew up in the Midwest. I started gardening with my father when I was 5 years old. Now I'm about to turn 65, and wherever I've been, I've always tried to include gardening in my activities. I've faced several problems. The first one is space. I just don't have enough of it to do what I would really care to do. But again, the container gardening is really a good thing to try, even in a limited space like a patio. I insist on growing everything organically. So I do have pests, and I refuse to use any kind of poison against them. So I try to use all natural products from different flowers and things like that don't pose any kind of risk to humans in the food stuff, and that's how I contain my problem with everything from caterpillars to thrips. I wanted good food for my family. I always have, and that's the way I was raised. My father used to catch bluegills and put one in a hole with a corn kernel, and that's how I grew up, eating really fabulous food, and it's a tradition I've wanted to continue with my own extended family. My products go to the people I love and to my neighbors. I'm known in my neighborhood as the greengrocer, and if somebody needs anything, they come to me. If they need basil, if they need this, that, or the other thing, I'm the go-to person with fresh produce. My products do not come from DuPont or any poison sources. My seeds are absolute heirloom seeds, and it's so funny because my composter keeps growing tomatoes. I don't even know what I'm going to get when I turn the soil, but everything is seed that can reintroduce itself. There are no GMO seeds in my garden, ever.
Cool, let's see if my garden is sustainable. Environmentally, this garden is sound. I'm not affecting the outside world very much besides taking water from a pipe outside of the house to water with, and even then I'm barely using any water. There aren't really any social aspects to this garden besides giving me something to do and take care of. It doesn't really affect other people, but when the plants all reach maturity, I'll harvest them, and that'll probably lead to something of a large familial get-together. It's socially sustained. Economically, it's safe to say that I'm not making any money on this garden. In fact, I'm losing some because of the needed purchase of frost cloth and water bills and the purchase of seeds. I'm not making any money, but I'll save some eventually. In the long run, for the amount of vegetables I'll be getting, do they completely outdo ones that I'd quickly pick up in a supermarket? No, but then again, I don't have any ties to Monsanto or any GMO. Overall, is the system sustainable? No, it's not, especially in the economical area. A wise person once said that time is equivalent to money, so therefore money must equal time, and it does in this situation. A huge problem with this system is that if I were surviving on it, there's no way I'd be alive right now. It takes too long to grow the sparse amount of food that I'm growing with no summer crop I already grew. I could solve this problem through starting a summer crop next season and having plants grow year-round, but then again, I don't have to. I could just choose to buy my food from another supplier, but based on what we've just learned, is that the best idea?